Hello everyone, this is Marie and this is the layout I made this week for the ScrapGals Podcast, the Life Stories episode. As I was making it, I thought that it would be super fun to film my process and chat with you about how I make a layout from beginning to the end with all the steps and most of my thoughts behind the choices that I make. So here we go. Alright, so how did I choose this story first of all? Well, in my notes app, I have a list of a lot of stories. Every time I want to start a page, I go through the list and I see what story inspires me at this moment. Since it's also a story that I share on a podcast, I want it to be an interesting story and I want to have enough things to say. But regardless of that, the space in my house and in my albums is limited, and I don't want to use all the space for just, let's say, tiny snippets of my life. I did document that in my Project Life albums in previous years when the girls were little, but now that the girls are older, I really want to focus on telling my life with a minimum of stories and pages, if that makes sense. Alright, so I started this layout with the story in mind, and I went to my computer, looked at all my pictures that I had available. So in Photoshop, I opened a canvas that was 24 inches by 12 inches, which is the size of my layout on my table. And I took each picture one by one and I slid them on that canvas, resizing them so that they are not too big. And I started writing all the things I wanted to say about this story. I wanted to tell the story of what a week looks like during that time in my life. So I decided to put the weekly part of my week on the left side and the weekends on the right side. That made sense for me to tell the story that way. When I was done aligning pictures and text, I printed my journaling on colored cardstock and started placing the words and the pictures on my layout, and I kind of realized that it was way too much text. The words were too small, the story was too dense, and I didn't want people to open my scrapbook and think, ugh, I don't want to read that story. It's too daunting. It doesn't appeal to me. So at this point I was thinking, what am I going to do with all of this? And I started exploring possibilities. So here you see me playing with another background with some ledger paper. You see me matting some pictures in smaller groups, regrouping them in another way, adding ephemeras. Here I was contemplating the possibility of adding one 8.5 by 11 page in between these two pages. There could have been, on one side, this letter that my boyfriend wrote to me, and on the other side I could have split the pictures and split the text to make it less heavy. I was looking at more pattern paper, trying to make everything fit. And this, when I make a scrapbook page, is often what I do. I often have an idea at the beginning and then I will have to make it fit. If it doesn't fit, like it did now, I decided to just cut the journaling. I went back to pen and paper and I jotted down only the points that were necessary to the story. I wanted to narrow down the story and to make it lighter, to make the page lighter. In the end, I didn't do the insert, but I definitely want to make it at some point. When this was done, I went back to Photoshop, I typed all my journaling. I added some pictures that you see here. I changed the journaling, so I had to work with more pictures. I resized some of them that were too small, and I decided to print my text on white copy paper first so that I could place it on my canvas with the photos before I print it on colored paper. That was still my plan at this point. Here I am comparing the size of the new text compared to the font, of the first text that I had, and I find that it's better. So I went to my trimmer and I started to cut all the paragraphs. I added some numbers to make sure that I knew the order, that it was easier for me to keep track of the order of the journaling. And then I started again to play around with the journaling, the pictures, which one am I going to keep, where are they going to go? And this went on for a while. I will spare you the commentary on that. And once I'm happy with the layout, I went back to Photoshop and I printed my journaling on those pattern paper. Now, these are 12 by 12 sheets. First of all, it took me a while to decide which pattern was subtle enough to be printed on. I wanted to have a rainbow gradient, and I didn't want, like the red at the bottom to clash with the green on the right. So I really had to make sure that all the colors were in a pleasant order before I went to the printer and printed. And then I also had to cut these 12 by 12 papers to an 8.5 by 11 canvas, because the way I work with Photoshop, when I print my text, I always print on 8.5 by 11. So there was a lot of waste of pattern paper, but it's just the way it goes when you scrapbook, and I prefer to lose some paper and to have a pretty page in the end than to be sparing with my paper and to have a page that I just half enjoy because it's not the paper that I should have taken. And so I've been playing around with all those rainbow colored papers in my stash. I have a lot of papers, a lot. And still it was really hard to find colors that would go well together as well as go well with my pictures. In the end, I found 6 colors that I was happy with, and I just decided to go for it and print my text on it and see where this version would bring me. So here I am again playing with my pictures and blocks of texts. I will trim, I will resize. I won't resize pictures, but I definitely trim. Here you saw my teacher disappear from the picture, and I'm tucking behind. Sometimes the text is behind, sometimes some pictures are behind others. I try to incorporate some more ephemeras, but in the end, only that little black and white cow on the card will be on my layout, and some stamps that I was collecting at that moment in time. As I said earlier, I will probably make a page that will go in between these, and I will add way more memorabilia and pictures and one more story. why not? And now that I'm happy with my placement, that's when the real fun starts. So for you, it's been 10 minutes, and for me, it's been many days, right? Of thinking and rethinking and printing and reprinting and, yeah, shuffling papers and pictures. But that's fun too, right? That's part of the, living with your story and thinking about it and reminiscing the past. And I kind of like actually all the steps of making a scrapbook layout. So here I am gluing things down. I know that I want to stitch around all my journaling blocks. So I use this adhesive roller that doesn't glue very well, and just to keep it, keep the papers in place when I will stitch. I only put the glue in the middle of the blocks because I don't want my needle to become all sticky and gooey. Not that it didn't happen before. And if that ever happens to you, use undo. You just dab some undo on a little piece of cotton, and it takes a second and the needle is as new, but it's one more step. So now I'm happy with both my pages. I head to my sewing machine, and the trick to use the sewing machine is to have your sewing machine out and ready. So I usually have white thread in it. It's not easy to sew on a 12 by 12 page because, as you can see, the page is larger than the what's the name of that, like the hole where the page goes. But I always bend my page and as I go, and it always seems to work. I stitch on pretty much all of my projects, cards included, and that's how I do it. It's not perfect, it's complicated, it's finicky. Sometimes the thread will, snap, but most of the time it goes well. When I'm all done stitching, I cut all the little loose threads. I used to adhere them in the back with some tape, but I don't do that anymore. It's not so fragile, a layout is going into a page protector anyways, so in my experience the threads stay in place. Now I placed back all my photos and ephemeras that I want to put on my layout, and now I have to stick them down using double-sided tape. For the little card with a cow on it, I used photo corners. This way I can still pull the card out if I want to. The name of my friend is inside, so I didn't want to glue it closed. I'm using some small letter stickers. I have a lot of stickers in every shape, sizes and colors, and they always come handy. On this layout, I don't know if you realize that, but there's not really a title. So I let the 1999 be the title, which is the year where I left my home to fly on my own, with my boyfriend. I just dug up some jewels that I have in my stash. I don't even think that's scrapbooking material. It's just like kids stuff, I think. But anything will work. I like to add some bling. So a little orange star will be perfect for that. Sometimes I use liquid glue. I like the Barely Art liquid glue. and just a little bit will work, will be enough. Here I found a little heart gem. When I use one thing, I like to use it at least 2 times. 3 times would have been even better. Always go with the triangle, the visual triangle. Now I have the orange one at the top left and the red one at the bottom right. It's fine. Now I'm going to add some very small labels and handwrite on them to add some more details to the story. I like to add labels to pictures just to describe what's on the picture. I have a pouch with a lot of labels, and that's where I go when I need labels. I have many sizes, colors, styles. Some are stickers, some are cardstock, and they all come handy at some point. Those are tiny labels, and to write on them I use a micron pen 0.1. So here you see me thinking, what can I add, what makes sense. This is truly my favorite part of the layout making. It's almost like a puzzle, but the pieces are endless. It depends what you have in your scrapbooking room. So it's time to think about all the possibilities. I went and found some stickers with gold foil, and it was funny how all the words were working. It was all about firsts and, taking flights and unplugging. And it's funny because this story is a lot about me being homesick. I didn't talk about it because I wanted to keep my layout very positive. But just adding that sticker saying unplugged where I was on the phone. In the journaling I was talking about the fact that phone calls to my mom were only happening on weekends because we had an international plan at my in-laws' house. So only adding one word like unplugged sometimes is enough to do the job. So here I'm thinking about the penny. How am I going to attach the penny? And how am I going to say what I want to say about the penny? One more time I use one sticker label from my own collection that I designed with Pretty Little Studio. And there's not enough space, so I add one more little small tiny label. And then I will make a little pocket with clear plastic or clear acetate. So now I'm trying to decide, am I going to just add it over the penny? And then I decided to go with 2 layers, one in the back and one in the front. This is a circle punch to make a little dent so that I can reach the penny to take it out if I want to. I used my sewing machine to stitch it in place. I really like the stitching. It's a good way to stick pieces in place. You are sure that they won't move. And for that little transparent pocket, if I would have used double-sided tape, we would have seen it. Here I'm adding some stamps. When adding my last embellishments like this and my little labels and last elements, I try to be mindful of the design, either by checking the colors or the kind of embellishments. So I try to spread them in a visual triangle. Here you can see that the yellow car on the right goes hand in hand with the yellow at the left side of that page, and it ties with the stamp that is yellow on the left of the donuts. So it creates like a visual line so that your eye doesn't stay at one space, it moves along on the page. Think of visual triangle with everything you add. It's a great advice when you create a layout like this. Don't scatter things randomly. Here I'm adding some last stickers, white and black with gold foil. I will stitch them down with my sewing machine. And as you can see, there are 2 white stickers on the left page and 1 on the right, and they form a visual triangle. Now I just went to stitch them down, and I am done with my layout. So cutting the little threads, I'm going to sign my name and write the date on the back. That's nice because you can always go and check when the layout was made and when the journaling was written. On the back of my layout, I always sign my name and write the date. This way I kind of know when the journaling was written. I don't need to write it on the top. And this is the end. This is my layout all done. I will show you some of the details a little bit closer. I really like the texture of that layout. It's pretty flat. There's no wood veneer or metal, but even just the letter stickers and the stitching gives the layout a little bit of texture. There you have it. I hope you enjoyed my video. If you do, let me a comment. I would be really happy. Like my video, you can share it if you want, or talk about it to some of your scrappy friends. The more I have comments and likes on that video, the more I will be inclined to make another one next month when I'm presenting my next life story layout with the ScrapGals. Thanks for watching, everyone. I really appreciate you being here and all of your support. Thank you. Bye.